Hello everyone. Thank you for joining me. My name is Helen Parker and I'm excited to give you an overview of a new book in the Sharp Ideas in Sport series titled Women's Sport and Transgender Inclusion, the Counter-Biological Argument. I have the pleasure of co-authoring this book with Beth Hands and Elizabeth Rose. Although we're now retired, we have researched together for many years, specifically on motor development, physical activity, fitness and health among children and youth of different motor abilities, and our research collaboration continues today. Now, do you recognise any of these athletes and what they might have in common? Leah Thomas, swimmer, USA. Laurel Hubbard, weightlifter, New Zealand. Emily Bridges, cyclist, UK. Veronica Ivy, Rachel McKinnon, cyclist, Canada. Brianna Gill, golfer, Australia. Hannah Mounsey, Australian footballer, European handballer, Australia. Fallon Fox, martial arts, United States. And Jane Lowerson, surfer, Australia. Yes, they have won national representation, achieved podium finishes and set new records in women's sport. Yes, they have achieved fame and media attention for their achievements. And yes, they have all identified as women. However, they were all born male. They were permitted to compete in the women's sports, having met requirements under new participation regulations in their respective codes. And this small list represents the issues at the heart of our book. Is women's sport destined to become a mixed sex category? What about biological differences between males and females? Is it fair or safe for biological girls and women to compete against male-bodied athletes? Our concern about these issues began in 2019 when 9 Australian sporting bodies released new regulations on the eligibility for women's sport, aligning with the guidance from the Australian Human Rights Commission and Sport Australia, the national sports representative body. The guidance included issues related to widespread discrimination against gender diverse individuals in sport. It also identified the human right for all to compete in sports, and it also urged sporting codes to diversify and include this marginalised group. However, these regulations prioritised gender identity over biological sex for entry into women's sport. This change was echoed internationally with the International Olympic Committee's 2015 guidelines on sex reassignment among athletes, emphasising gender identity as the key to inclusive participation. Now, this prioritisation puzzled us. From our backgrounds in biology and exercise science, we knew clear sex differences in physiology, physique, and motor performance exist, and those differences favour males. Such sex-based differences have always been the rationale for a separate women's category in any case. It ensures fair competition and a chance for girls and women to win among athletes of the same biological makeup. Now, despite this knowledge, the new policies introduced a new group of athletes into the women's category. They were males identifying as females who are called trans women. Advocates and policymakers deemed it was only fair for trans women to compete in the women's category because, after all, they declared they were women, despite their male biology. So why this book? Well, the debate so far on inclusion has focused on sociological, gender and social psychological evidence, but has missed important information from the biological perspective. So we wrote this book to reintroduce sports science and biological facts into the discussion. We're hoping that policymakers would consider this information and redraft regulations based on evidence and biological reality. Briefly, the sport explores the development of those policies around the world and their impact on sex-divided sports. The biology of sex differences and the role of testosterone is also considered. We look at the sports science evidence on physical performance, the differences between the sexes, the effects of cross-sex hormones on transgender women's athletic capacities. Also, the consequences of inclusion for women's sport, including fairness, safety, and the integrity of the women's category. Further, how have sports codes tried to balance inclusion principles with fairness and safety within their codes? And what are the recent policy revisions that have occurred in some sports, such as World Athletics, World Swimming, UCI cycling? In the final chapters, we propose some solutions like open or third categories and emphasise at all times the need for sports policies to be grounded in biological science. Our key message is clear. Post-puberty, women's sport should be for those whose sex at birth is female. The book also includes 2 appendices. The first, summarising sports regulations around the world. The second one is a catalogue of transgender athletes and their achievements, where overwhelmingly we find trans women athletes more than trans men athletes. If this topic is of interest to you, our book is available now under the imprint of Sport and Society with Common Grounds. We advocate at all times for protecting the women's category from male-bodied athletes, arguing that male sports indeed should be the ones to find ways to include trans women, because after all, trans women are biologically men. They are not biologically women. We promote fair and safe sport policies based on biological science, not gender identity beliefs solely. Whether you're a student, a sports leader, a policy maker, a community member, a parent, or part of the LGBTQI community, we think this book will help you engage in a respectful and informed debate on this important issue from all perspectives. Thank you for listening, and goodbye.